Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Tapped Out Wrestling Podcast. I'm, of course, Nick McDaniel. As always, I am joined by my buddy Myron.
And all of my murder threats today will be part of wrestling angles.
God, that guy never learns, does he?
No, he does not. And it's morbid curiosity. It's like watching a train wreck, and I don't know whether to feel sorry for him or to keep watching. He's the Tiger King of former wrestlers.
Look, after we ran into him at WrestleCade and had that conversation, I'm like, I'm all in on just keeping up on this. I got to know how this goes.
Welcome to the show, folks.
Yeah, speaking of shows, before we get started, I want to, before we get into the meat of it, I do want to, and we're going to talk about a few things today, obviously. We're going to talk about All Out, Jake Roberts talking about young talents, this whole social media, third-party platform, whatever, controversy, and then just people's claim of wanting the Attitude Era back. I mean, we'll get into that.
Why do you want it back, and do you really?
Yeah. So... or could it even last? Maybe that's a better topic for us today.
I would love to be 25 again.
Yeah.
Wouldn't you?
Yeah. That's an understatement.
But it just wasn't as good as I thought it was.
No. But before we get started, I know you had asked me curiosity. And
yes, this was a fascinating conversation we just had. I don't think anybody has reported on such a situation before. I've not seen anybody's experiences with this. Tell me, Nick, about your trip to the Thunderdome.
So I did register. I did get lucky, and I did get the email that I got into Thunderdome for Raw on Monday. And it was a kind of a crazy thing of, so I got the email, and I'm like, all right, so my call time was 8:15. Well, first of all, I was curious because I'm like, Raw starts at 8.
Yes.
But so I got it. I understood. And so then on Monday, I got the link email. It said, click here, be ready. Gave me all the guidelines of be centered in your, from the midsection up, centered as much as you can in your front of your webcam. Make sure that, it's a blank wall behind you or, a neutral wall. Okay, maybe that'll explain something in a minute. I don't know. I don't know if they saw me, but that's a whole other argument. But of course, when I logged in, it basically says, checking availability, please stand by. And now I logged in at, me, 8:05. I was logged in. I just wanted to be ready. I don't know that they could see me. Maybe they could see me. Maybe that's why I didn't get on, because they were like, hey, it's not a blank wall behind him.
But that's a wonderful comic book store.
Yeah, exactly. Who knows, right? But anyway, so I sat around, I watched on my phone while I was waiting. And ended up waiting for 45 minutes after staring at a checking availability, just stand by for 45 minutes. What did we establish, Myron?
We're too old to wait.
Yeah. After 45 minutes, I was out.
We don't know how much time we've got left anymore. Yeah. We're pushing 50. We have to live in the moment.
So so my first experience with the Thunderdome, I didn't get in. I waited 45 minutes. I never got in, so I was out. And I went upstairs and watched, the rest of it on TV like everybody else. And so,
but will you attempt to do this again?
Absolutely. I will register, but just WWE, just to give them a heads up. Next time I'm giving you 30 minutes and I'm out. I'm not going to sit there for 45 minutes again. And
now, what all do you have to agree to?
I mean, not much really. In the grand scheme of things. It's shoot from your midsection up, kind of a neutral wall behind you is basically what it says. So I don't know what that means, but and make sure that you don't have a bright light like right in front of you, so your face isn't lit up super bright. But make sure you have adequate lighting in your which makes sense. And it said they did encourage WWE merchandise, of course, but they wouldn't let you. They didn't want you wearing anything that was like third-party branding, kind of thing. So like no Southern Honor hat, I'm guessing, and Tapped Out wrestling shirt, which is what I had on anyway. But I had it like this, so you couldn't really even see what it was.
Yeah.
I was hoping gonna get on like this, and then just casually like lean back while I was watching.
Off the merch, ProWrestlingTees.com.
Exactly. So, but anyway. So let's get started. We know everybody's here. They're not here to just listen to me talk about Raw, right? They try to get into Thunderdome.
Thunderdome.
But, we always tell you, if you're watching this video here on Facebook, you're listening to the podcast, always remember you can get it early at patreon.com/tappedoutpod. Podcasts are released, generally a day early, sometimes two, when it releases on Tuesday. We always we appreciate all the guys who have spent all their hard-earned money, especially now. Especially during times like, now. We greatly appreciate anybody that has supported the show whatsoever, much less guys who are willing to pay money to get stuff early and etc. But again, patreon.com.
I promise I won't send pictures of my feet to any of our Patreons. I got a good angle there.
Yeah. So, well, I was going to say something else. But anyway, let's jump straight into it, man. Let's talk about what we were just discussing. This third-party platform controversy. I'll kind of get us started, Myron, on what was your take, because I have a whole weird take on it.
This is one of those things where former presidential candidates weighed in. We've had talk shows talk about this in the past. It's a branding issue. Regardless of what you want to say about the independent contractor status, regardless of what you want to say about these people making money, Vince made your name. Paige, his name is not Paige. Okay, that's just the truth. Lana's name is not Lana. She's not from Russia. It took me a while to figure that out. But we look at this, folks, and if I were to start a gaming platform or get a Facebook where I promoted myself as an employee of my company and the best employee of that company, and I spoke for that company without being a spokesman for that company, I would fall into a really bad gray area where I would get fired. You can't do that. Now, if you go out there and say, my name is, what's her name? I can't remember her real name.
Soraya.
No, that's her mother's name. Her last name is Knight. I can't remember her real name. I should have read more into this. But if you use your real name and you're doing stuff and you don't talk about the WWE and you promote yourself as a person, I can see why it wouldn't be that big a deal. But if you're going to use their branding, I get it. And I'm not apologizing for the WWE. I hate the independent contractor status. I think stuff like this is horrible. They should, if they're going to be able to do this stuff, they should be able to sell and make money off different avenues without having to do everything in the WWE. But nobody would. She's an attractive woman, but a lot more people know her from wrestling right now than her short film career. I think we could do better for these guys. We could unionize, even not even unionize, make them full-time employees, give them benefits. But when you do this thing where you're an independent contractor and then they pull away all these things. I talked about representing my company, but I have a full-time job with a salary and benefits. They make me sign agreements, but then again, they provide me with a salary and benefits.
Okay.
So it's a two-way street.
Well, here's the devil's advocate side of that. Because everybody's trying to make the argument being about independent contractors and employees and things like that. And I think the quick rush to judgment was as to why. It all boils down. Look, when we think about first of all, I think it's a limited number of people that we're really talking about. On your Twitch, you're talking, for the most part, AJ Styles, Paige. Those are really the ones that jump out. Now, there's probably others, and people are going to tell me, right?
Xavier Woods has a very good YouTube.
But he's on YouTube. That's what I'm saying.
It's never been a problem.
Well, because guess what? It's under his real name.
But has he ever represented things?
What people don't wrap their mind around is when it's an IP issue. It's Vince protecting his brands, and whether you like to think it or not, those wrestlers' names are his brand. That's why he owns those. That's why he likes to change those. You can go out, and I think everybody jumped all over the story and started, just beating up on the WWE, not waiting for the fact that when he clarified the issue was you can't use your, he goes, you can use your real names, but you just can't use your WWE name and have a free for all. Now, I know everybody likes to think they wanted to blame Lana. And I don't mean this in a negative way, by the way. I know that it sounds like it, but it's really not. I don't think Lana was the one that was. It's probably somebody more along the lines of, what Paige does on Twitch.
Yeah.
And it's
Paige has a history of being a bad representative of the company. Let's just get around all the social issues and not be politically correct about the whole thing. Let's just put it at, if Paige was employed at a different company, if Paige was a Disney princess, if Paige was a star on any mainstream TV shows, it tickled me. But you think about it. Think of it. If Paige was on one of the Disney shows, okay, and she had done a nudie set, that would have caused a lot of problems. Okay, so Paige is an employee of her company, and I don't know what all she's shown. I think it's just mainly been bra and panty type stuff, but she's not exactly someone who has always made a good impression as an employee of the company. You don't do that on the championship belt.
So, and then on YouTube, like I said, Xavier Woods using his real name, making a game. I don't think that's the issue. And he has come out and said he doesn't think he's an issue. He's going to just keep doing what he does until somebody tells him he can't. This is twofold. Okay, so one, like I said, it was brand protection. I think that's what people are missing out on. But two, I think at one point the conversation was, if you did everything through WWE, you could negotiate better deals, especially like the cameos, where everybody's just going out and doing their great big free for all.
I didn't really get that.
Well, here's my problem with cameos. Is supposedly, and I know you can say no, by the way, but with cameos, basically somebody's paying you to say, whatever, or I don't know what your limits are, and you can say no. But what if you say something that's just not and everybody's like, oh, well, they're independent contractors. Yes, but they're not when it's their brand. We used this example off the air, so I'll bring it up. Robert Pattinson is the new Batman.
Yes.
If he has a Twitter account, which he does, obviously, and he posts something as that, it could still be an issue down the road, and he's just an independent contractor. He's not an employee of Warner Brothers or whoever. But he can't open a Twitter that's at the Batman and do things.
I mean, it's a fair analogy.
It's no different. And honestly, it's not. It's the same principle of, it's an IP content, brand that the WWE owns, and they're just telling you can't. Now, it does get tricky when your real name is your wrestler name and all that kind of stuff, absolutely. But now, that's the rarity.
Cold? I mean, Stone Cold probably has a better deal. And you see these guys that are bigger names, they get better deals. They're not technically currently employed. Vince isn't going to bother a Stone Cold. Vince isn't going to bother a Cena or Rock. But if you're currently working for him and you're doing stuff he doesn't approve of, probably not going to work. But those cameos, for lack of a better word, he probably wanted a piece of the pie, and the piece of the pie would be a bigger pie because it would be a WWF pie, not a personal independent contractor cameo pie, and there'd be rules and stuff would make a bit of a difference. I think people would be better off to go through a WWE cameo type scenario. You could buy a message from a WWE superstar, but you're marketing yourself as a WWE superstar because nobody knows who Alexa Bliss was until she became a WWE superstar.
Right. Again, folks, just calm down. You can use your real name and you can still use your, those platforms. You just can't be your character's name, and because he's protecting a brand.
Now, this is an evolving issue.
It will, and it'll grow, and I think it'll be handled, and it'll all be taken care of down the road.
Okay. Fair enough.
So, well, let's move on, man. That went longer than I thought we were going to do. Let's get a little bit of an attitude. WWE attitude, to be exact. Everybody, it stemmed from something this past weekend. And let's call it what it is, man. JR made some comments, and some people really, really, really,
Puppies,
um,
puppies,
well,
all the
it
puppies.
was real simple. I mean, he basically asked, did Anna J have a, did she have a
Wardrobe
wardrobe
malfunction.
malfunction, or was it just wishful thinking on his part? Now, my wife and I had this a conversation about this. This is how crazy this got, right? Um, I get it, and I understand, but it really didn't bother me to the extent that it did a lot of people. Um, because guess why? It's wrestling, right? I mean, there's a part
Yeah,
of me that's like it's
it is
wrestling.
wrestling. It is wrestling, and I suspend a lot of my was it I wouldn't even say disbelief because I suspend a lot of my expectations on what is uh, acceptable when it comes to wrestling. It's an entertainment program where people are playing roles. Okay, is this Jr. and some kind of uh, weird trying to stay relevant thing where he's channeling some Jerry the King Lawler? Because that 20 years ago, was it, what was it, 22, 23 years ago, when the whole thing, the Attitude Era was in full swing, that wouldn't have made the news. That wouldn't have even been spoken about again. I mean, the stuff that went on commentary on Raw was a lot different.
Yeah.
It was semi blue. It was the Attitude Era, attitude. So if you're not going to let him say what would not even flown, would not even made a blip on the radar during the Attitude Era, why do you think you want the Attitude Era back?
Well, that's my question. Is we were asking like the reaction that he got just from that comment, and everybody claims they want the Attitude Era back. They want everything. My question to you was like, man, I don't even think it could survive with where we are because of the amount of just blowback that they
DX's
got.
face.
I mean, well, we talked about that. Like, I mean,
Poppy, poppy, pee pee.
I mean, Val Venus is a porn character essentially. I mean,
The
just,
hoe train.
I mean, that Katie Vick, the necrophilia, the
But was any of
insinuation.
that good? I mean, was that necessary? Was that at the time it was groundbreaking and funny and it was a different time. And I'm not saying everybody's soft now because I don't believe everybody's soft now. I believe everybody's tired of letting stuff that bothered them slip by. That's my take on it.
Okay,
Um,
I disagree. I think society as a whole it has gotten soft. Now, not on every issue, and there's some things that I agree with. When I see those, I'm like, okay, that wasn't okay then, and it's not okay now. But here's my biggest pushback on things when it comes to the blowback on pro wrestling. Is society itself has created a culture where we just attack anything that could offend anybody. But here's my argument: pro wrestling gets the cons of the fact that everybody likes to say it's not real, it's not a real sport,
mhm,
it's
mhm.
it's acting, they're just acting, it's a TV show. But then a character says something, but then they want it. Oh well, I'm like, well, but on a television show,
Yes.
a character says something. Well, it's a TV show. It's a character. It's not real. Okay, well then where does wrestling fall? So and it's a fine line of we want to pigeonhole. Like they want to be able to say it's wrestling. It's a person's in a ring. It's still scripted television, just like any other TV show.
And this was a pay per view. So you had to make a conscious decision to pay and watch this, unless you picked it up on the YouTube feed, which, guys, y'all got to get better about enforcing that. You got to take care of your intellectual property. But, I mean, Vince overtakes care of his, and it's 2-3 days later, the pay per view is still available on YouTube. Seriously. But I'm not defending JR. It was out of place.
Okay,
But
Myron, was it creepy?
JR's
Sure,
creepy.
but
He's creepy as hell.
if you haven't listened to his podcast, it's full of Blue Chew promotions and talking about using them. Like his friends love him when they see him coming with that blue tongue because you know what that means. Those kind of things.
Oh.
Um, it's creepy. I mean, it is what I mean, but my argument was, but dude, it was just JRB and J. I mean,
Why
but
do we
here's
look?
my argument, Myron. The blowback that we got out of this proves one fact, and we're gonna move on after I say this. Do you know what one thing it proves? This is why. This is why we have the PG era. This is why you claim that you don't want it, but you want the Attitude Era back. It can't survive because of one little slip of the tongue, and that it was the reaction we got. So
Yeah.
that's why Vince, but for advertising sakes, he doesn't want to offend audiences. He doesn't want any of the blowback because he's a publicly held company. Guys, those people are the ones who've created the PG era. Don't kid yourselves and think Vince is doing it for all of those reasons. They're like, he does it for the money. Yes, but it's that way because he has to be to keep people from getting offended and the advertisers keep putting the money down. That's why there's no Attitude Era.
Yep.
So, and we'll move on. So let's talk about the event where this comment was made. All Out happened on Saturday, and you said you watched it for free. Let's be blunt. You watched what you watched for free on Facebook, right, or YouTube?
Yeah, no, I found it on YouTube. I found it on YouTube Sunday, and by Monday it was still there. And for Christ's sake, that's just sad. And I watched it, and I mainly watched it from a morbid point of view. I wanted to see the bump. Okay, I wanted to see the bump. I wanted to see what happened to Hardy.
Well, we're going to end there because trust me, there's going to be a whole rant about there. So and I don't want to. I didn't mean to cut you off, but I want to end there for a reason.
Yes.
First and foremost, I think everyone can agree on the fact this was their. I was going to say it wasn't their best outing. I could argue it was probably their worst outing on a pay-per-view yet.
Well, you're going to have that.
Yeah.
Not everything's going to be perfect. There'll be a turd in the punch bowl. It's like having 4 kids. One of them's going to be a loser. It's just percentages, folks. You're going to do hell, WWE does 12 or 14 pay-per-views a year, and you bitch about them all the time. They probably do every other one of them bad. But this is your shining temple, AEW, the greatest thing ever. And they did a turd. It's going to happen. They're not flawless.
And we're going to get to what we consider probably was the biggest one, like I said, at the end. Like, I don't even crap on wrestlers like, Matt Sydal, Evan Bourne, whatever you want to call them, the botch. Man, stuff like that happens. It's called high risk for a reason.
Yes,
so
it happens.
I don't ever beat up wrestlers who botch moves, and in the sense of that ruined the pay-per-view. Okay,
I could have hit that. No.
Yeah.
It happens. It's a battle royal, for Christ's sake. Okay, shit happens in battle royals.
By the way, Myron, it's not I'd hit that, I'd tap that. That's a t-shirt at ProWrestlingTees.com.
I would have hit that move.
I know. I'm just kidding.
Okay. Well, semantics. But the thing was, why go to the top rope in a battle royal, for Christ's sake? But that's just me.
Yeah.
I'm a traditionalist. I'm no Jim Cornette, but I don't think people should go to the top rope in a battle royal. But whatever. If somebody hadn't pointed out, I probably would never noticed it.
Right.
I probably would have done something else. I probably would have been looking at something else at the time. I have the attention span of a gnat, folks.
I sent it to you. I thought it was funny.
It was funny. I'm going to laugh at it, but I mean, what the hell? It happened. It happens.
Listen.
And I was watching up until the bad thing happened. Yeah. Now you watched the whole thing.
Yeah. Okay. So Moxley and MJF was pretty good, by the way, just for the record. I did think that match was pretty good. Problem was it was post what we're going to discuss at the end, and that I think the air was out of the balloon at this point. Jericho and Orange Cassidy, I thought that was pretty entertaining. The reason I felt like it was entertaining is because they let Orange Cassidy do what Orange Cassidy does. It was more shtick and more, and Jericho played right along. And, listen, Jericho and the Mimosa makes sense. It hopefully gets Orange Cassidy over a little bit. Doesn't hurt Jericho. First of all, he could have pinned Jericho. It wouldn't have mattered. Going into a pool of Mimosa doesn't hurt Jericho at all. So that was all good.
I guarantee he'll get a Dynamite promo out of that.
Absolutely. Everything else, by the way, was kind of lacking. That's just my opinion. But it was there. And the irony of it was it comes in a week when Tony Khan is like, we crushed WrestleMania, and then you deliver something like this. I think karma sometimes can come back to bite you in the ass. And so sometimes you probably just want to just keep doing you and keep moving along. Especially, I think this show, top to bottom, what we just talked about, every match or whatever will be inconsequential to history it'll always be the first moment where I had the biggest doubt about some leaderships in that company. And this is because of what you wanted to talk about. The bump you wanted to see
Yeah.
was the Matt Hardy bump off of the rising scaffold, and he hits the concrete.
Well, I this is one thing I got out of the whole thing before I got to this is if you want to be Chick-fil-A and WBE is McDonald's, you don't try to make Big Macs. You don't talk about Big Macs. You make your chicken sandwiches and you make your lemonades and you say it's a pleasure and you do your thing and you just do your thing and you're different. You're an alternative. When you're not, you're Burger King. Okay. When you try to like make something better, you try to make a better McDonald's and it fails. What I got out of the whole thing is like I said, I don't know how to gimmick a table. I don't know how to set a table. What I do know is I saw the first tables, ladders, and chair match, and who was in it? Matt Hardy. Was Sammy Guevara born? I don't know the answer to that question. I've seen Matt Hardy take bumps, ridiculous bumps, and never got hurt like that. I've seen Matt Hardy in situations where I thought he would die, but he didn't. But I've never felt more worried about Matt Hardy than I did watching that pay-per-view bit. All I can tell, and this is my take on it, this is just from what I saw, you had a very broad landing platform. That later in the show, the finish was very similar. Matt Hardy knocking Guevara off an elevated platform onto a landing pad where he hit perfectly. Okay? They weren't that high. Matt is experienced with this kind of stuff. Matt knows how to do that bump.
Well, look, I know you're big on the whole like Sammy's not safe. That it was.
Well, he picked up the wrong chair. He picked up a non-folding chair and whacked him in the head when he had a gimmick chair he missed. Sammy panics and does this. And why Matt Hardy continues to put his life in his hands, I don't know. And I doubt Reby Hardy will let him do it again. And don't bust on Reby Hardy. Don't say, oh, she's hurting this. It's professional. One, it's professional wrestling. She's been doing this for a long time. She's been on there on Twitter. That's the brand. You get Matt, you get Reby. You want to make Reby shut the fuck up? You don't kill Matt. You put Matt in a good position. Okay? Matt makes money. Matt don't die.
Well, yes, I know what you're saying, but I mean, I coming back to like my point's not my issue was not it's Sammy's fault. I don't care whose fault it was, because accidents happen in wrestling. They just do. So my concern is more from the fact that I took issue with is after that spot, him getting to continue to that match. Because two things. One, okay, NFL protocol is 10 to 15 minutes of checking on somebody. They spent 3 minutes checking them. Now, one of your favorite sayings is the adult in the room.
And I got that from Platinum, and I agree 100%.
Yeah.
Could have Mr. Khan stepped up and said, you can't continue to Matt Hardy, he actually went back into his broken gimmick. Did you catch that?
Yeah. Okay, here's my thing, though, Myron.
After the bump, he went back into an old gimmick.
My thing to you, though, is I don't know that it's necessarily Tony Khan's responsibility. You have to have the medical professionals or somebody, just anybody that it's their job. Because what do we always say? The wrestler's always going to want to go back and finish the match. Especially, God forbid, it was a match where I think if Matt Hardy lost, he had to leave AEW.
Yeah.
You had days you could have worked that loophole out. You could have done anything to get out of this. But to let him come back, sometimes you have to protect wrestlers from themselves.
Where was Arn Anderson?
Just anybody.
Anybody.
Yeah. But my biggest thing is it lays at the feet of, did you not have competent medical professionals there to make that call? Two, because in the next thing, not only did you allow him to go out there to finish, you let him climb up a what do they call this, rigs or whatever, thing, and he was shaky at best. Then what if hypothetically he's climbing up this thing and he falls off?
Yeah.
He slips and falls. I mean, then he's really hurt. You know what I'm saying? I mean, ding, ding, ding. He's bouncing through that thing like a ping pong ball on the way down. Or, and I'm like, that's the worst thing that could have happened, which it didn't happen, thank God. And everybody's like, well, he didn't have a concussion, he's okay, or whatever. Doesn't matter. In that moment, you did not know after 3 minutes.
The
Listen,
part that killed me.
Ivar got hurt, on Monday Night Raw. He did a dive out of the ring, which, hey, fat guys doing dives. We've had this conversation a million times.
I've seen it happen.
Shouldn't happen. They think he had some type of cervical injury. But they took him to the hospital. They threw up the X. They took him to the hospital, and he's going to be okay.
Audrey threw the X up on Matt.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. So the referee did the right thing, but the adult in the room should have stopped it, and it should have even progressed beyond that.
But
So here's the ultimate.
Afterwards, though, and it's like, oh, he doesn't have a concussion. He's fine.
Well,
oh, he doesn't have a concussion. He's fine.
Right. I think, but ultimately, what our concern is. My concern is for the company's sake, who we are fans of AEW, which is crazy to hear after what we're saying right now. The thing that will be talked about from this pay-per-view, more, in my opinion, and I could be wrong, more than anything, is that spot.
Yeah, you're not going to remember anything else. Much like Matt Hardy.
Okay. I mean, which could be true.
But nobody's going to think about anything else. Everybody remembers the bad, and that was the bad. The way it was handled afterwards, though, I don't agree with the fact that Tony Khan was on there just saying all that. Oh, he doesn't have a concussion. You should. I don't want to say thoughts and prayers. You basically said our hearts are with Matt Hardy right now. Whatever. You should have made a post that was correct, or a post that was politically correct, or kayfabe, or whatever.
Yeah.
Good. Don't argue with his wife on Twitter.
Right. Good, bad, or indifferent. Fans are so emotionally attached to him that's going to be the moment they remember more than anything. No moves, no cool moves or whatever, and that's going to lead us straight. Now, before we get into our next topic, clearly share your thoughts and opinions on the whole thing, because if you disagree with us, we strongly encourage that we have, hey, share your thoughts at TappedOutPod on social media, tappedoutpod@gmail.com, and of course, if you're watching us on the Facebook, right down below us, comment away. But the next thing we were talking about, which leads me when we're talking about emotion and all that kind of stuff, some comments came out this week Jake the Snake Roberts made about talent getting it over. And of course, by the way, Myron, everybody jumped to the thing, when he made the comment, they don't know how to get over. And it's funny because everybody jumped all over it. And then when you actually read it, God forbid you actually open the article. This isn't even a wrestling thing.
No. We just look at the tagline.
Yeah, read the headline and go off on it. That's the societal issue as a whole, not even just a wrestling thing. But what he said in the article is 100% accurate. He basically wanted to go to the point and prove out that wrestlers now, it's all visual. It's about the flippy moves and the really cool thing that you see. And I'm paraphrasing and moving some sentences around for a purpose here. Visual only lasts for split seconds when it comes to wrestling, right, Myron?
Yeah. I don't feel wrestling anymore.
Yeah.
When I feel wrestling? When I'm at a live show. I feel wrestling when I watch something like Jordan Grace and Deonna Purrazzo. When you evoke some form of emotion. Honestly, Raw Underground evokes emotion. Even with Kevin Owens on it still evokes emotion. Things look real. When you make me emotionally invested, when your character's over.
Well, that's what he said. He wanted to point out in his day and time, you didn't go for the eye, you went for the heart.
Exactly.
Once you have somebody emotional, that lasts a lifetime.
I'm looking for the Jake the Snake's autograph picture up on this wall right there. Next to Mr. Wrestling #2. Jim Cornette, Rock and Roll Express, Paul Orndorff. People who bonded with me as a child. People who made me believe in them. Even if they were bad guys. Okay?
You feared them.
I was scared of that damn bag with a snake in it. Okay? I was scared of the snake. I knew what he was going to do. And you got a feeling of dread because his promos would tell you what he's going to do. He got over. Now, you can say what you want about Jake the Snake Roberts, and everybody's got a take on Jake the Snake Roberts. Just look back as a child watching professional wrestling on TV and see what you thought about him then. That's the context we're talking about. Okay?
Listen, Myron, we're not even talking about him personally in the sense of even from the wrestling side. What we're saying though is I want you, here's a challenge for fans. Think about the matches that last forever, like you remember to this day. You were emotionally attached. Hell, 7 out of the 10 times, the matches themselves weren't that great
No.
in the sense of the technical wrestling. They're Rock Hogan, Andre Hogan. That tends to be a thread there with Hogan. I mean,
Does Hogan ever have a starred match at all? He doesn't need one. Because the little Hulkamaniac and you was so in, ooh, yeah, and you just had to get off, and you just wanted to see Hogan do the comeback. And when he did the hand up for the third time and it didn't drop, and you just got so involved because you had an emotional bond with the thing. Do I get really upset when I see, as much as I like Roman Reigns, do I get upset when I see him getting beat up really badly? No. When Matt Hardy falls through a damn table, though, when he was one of the Hardy Boys. Now, I'm too old to say he was a childhood favorite of mine, but he was a favorite of mine through a substantial portion of my wrestling fandom.
Right.
Okay? He bonded with me. I will always care about what happens to Matt Hardy. I will always care about what happens to Chris Jericho. I couldn't give two shits about 90% of the roster on any promotion right now.
Because, like you said,
right behind me.
They're so worried about the spots. Go for my heart. Go make it, evoke some emotion. It can be a promo. It doesn't have to be the match. And I've always challenged and said to the fact, and anybody could correct me if they think that I'm wrong, I've always thought that the way to be a star is the promo in the ring, or the promo. It's not in the ring work. Talking them into the building, and
you got to get them in the building.
Yeah.
Wrestling now assumes that they'll come to see you work, or they're just going to come anyway. Bob Armstrong would tell you who had done him wrong, where he was going to fix it, and what he was going to do about it, and where you needed to be either to watch it on television or to be there live.
Yeah.
And he came in and he still did the shaky legs and the bullet stuff. Meltzer didn't write any of that shit.
It's one of those get me fired up. Don't worry about how do you have to deliver in the ring? Sure, but you can do less if you get me fired up before you go into the building. So fans, that's what Jake was talking about when he talked about getting over.
And I will give you something. I'll give you what I'll call from now on the Hanson principle. They cut that promo. Not only did Hanson work his way up to Rumblejack and got home up your Hanson here in Georgia, folks. Southern Honor. He spent a campaign trying to get on Rumblejack. He spent a thing emotionally investing people. Okay? He lives in Valdosta. Canton, Georgia is on the other end of the globe, folks. Okay? Nobody knew who the hell he was up there, but they did by the time when they did that video of Gary backstage and you heard that beer crack, the place went nuts because he found a way to make you bond with him emotionally. So when he came out, he didn't have to do anything. He was already over.
Correct.
That was what wrestlers did when I was a kid. That's what wrestlers did when I was a young man. Where did it go away? Is it scripted promos? Is it the Ring of Honor mentality? I don't know what to say, but I'd like to see something happen. And just for a reference point, I saw that video twice prior to them playing on the big screen in the ring during Rumblejack, and I still popped like hell because it was perfect at the time, at the moment. It worked out just fine.
I'm with you,
That's
man.
what wrestling means.
So like I said, man, we said it a couple times now. Get emotionally involved. Don't just worry about getting in that ring and being, stealing the show. Steal the show before you even get there. Make me be the one who buys the ticket for you. So, anyway, well, let's get on, man. We're gonna move on to the indie stuff, but we're gonna remind you again this week, folks. Tapped Out Collectibles. This is our new store that we started a couple weeks ago. Believe it or not, dude, I'm closing in on some sports and wrestling collectibles to add to the comics this week. Check us out on our Facebook page, of course. It's the easiest place. I'm putting stuff up in the marketplace. We have an eBay store. The links are there. If you go to tappedoutpod.com, there's a collectibles page that you can click on the top. It'll take you straight there, have some of the hot items, and it'll take you straight to the eBay store as well. So make sure you check us out at Tapped Out Collectibles, as it is always, for last week and this week. It's the Georgia Indie Talk sponsor. And Myron, you could call it a slow week in Georgia indie wrestling, but we wanted to be, we'd be remiss. I know Action ran their show this past week.
Yeah.
Sold out. They had their 35. It was a small COVID-friendly show.
Yeah.
It was a mature show, doubleheader. Did a pretty good job financially, for doing as far as their goal goes. So kudos to Matt Griffin and those guys down at Action, man, for running that show. And from all the points, getting a hit out of it.
Risk. It was a risk to do that. Okay. It was a financial risk. It was a conceptual risk. It's something that's never been done in Georgia indie wrestling, to my knowledge, where you sold a set number of tickets at an extremely high price compared to most shows. And they did it and they got over. Congratulations. Very good thing. Could we see that with more shows in the future? I should hope so.
Maybe.
I don't know how many hours. They got a bunch of matches out of it. Mm-hmm. Plenty of entertainment. I'm all for that. I'd do that. I could not do that because I was working, and God knows I can't get out of work these days, for Christ's sake.
No.
At this time of the year. But it was great. It's a good thing what they did, and I admire that. I admire them having the courage to step out on some challenge like that and do something different in Georgia indie wrestling.
I agree with you, man. Good job for them. I know Southern Fried's got their big show coming up on the 19th. They're going to be running again. They've been doing the outside shows. Kudos to them. It's much easier to socially distance and all that kind of stuff on these outdoor shows. Weather's supposed to start dropping in temp, Myron, so it's going to be time for us to break out and start hitting the road. I'm looking forward to it.
Let the leaves start falling, we'll be outside.
Yeah, well, the Southern Fried show, we know I'm a big fan of, and it's just I just don't do outdoor shows when it's in the 90s, that kind of thing.
I got to work.
Yeah.
So
definitely Southern Fried. I'm looking to make that trip probably because I saw the temps are supposed to be falling by then.
Ooh, nice.
Lariat Pro, you were telling me they've got a cool thing coming up.
How about that with Impact Stars? Get to see the big LG. Get to see Impact Champion. The Impact Champion. Get to see Heath, formerly known as Heath Slater. All in Dublin. I don't know where Dublin is, to be honest with you. But I'd consider driving down there to meet those big stars.
You said it's 2 days, Friday 2 to 4. You're going to have Doc Gallows and Laser. And then on Saturday from 2 to 4, it's Eric Young and Laser.
With a Z.
And then on Saturday 1 to 3, Heath is going to be at the Nissan dealership there in Dublin as well. So, I mean, I guess one of the perks of Larietto being involved, it's Doc Gallows, is that he's going to have those, ties to Impact, that he's going to be able to help bring over some of those and he get a chance to meet those.
I think it's agree. And folks, if you haven't checked out Impact lately, I would encourage you to give it another chance. What they're doing is good. What they're doing is something I legitimately look forward to. What they're doing is something I would rather watch than anything on television right now, because it looks like a wrestling show. It's kind of like a Attitude Era light. If you like the Attitude Era, fucking Impact's giving you most of it.
Yeah, I mean, they don't have to worry about it. So
twerk.
Absolutely.
Excessive twerking. I've never thought I'd say that.
Yeah, a little much. I agree with you. But back here on the Georgia scene, one of the things we wanted to point out this week was somebody asked things like, hey, why are you always promoting guys like Tyler, Culprit, Hold My Beer Hansen, who you just talked about a second ago, Proc the Croc, or, William Huckabee, now there are guys like Logan Creed, Joe Black, Corey Hollis, Gunnar Miller, to name a few. I always tell people they don't have to be publishing, like promoting them as much, because those guys have reached a level where they're there. But when you're pushing these other guys, it's like, well, how come? Well, because guys, they're doing something that a lot of wrestlers are not doing. Every poster, every video, every piece of merch / shirt, all your merch, any dates where you're going to be at or whatever, For God's sake, Myron, what should they be?
Shareable. This was a big weekend for wrestling t-shirts. It was so big, Matt Hankins did what might be the video of the year. I would swear that if Matt Hankins isn't up for all the awards in the abbreviated year award show, it might be a travesty. His son might actually get a nomination for something.
Yeah.
That was a great his t-shirt bit was phenomenal. I showed it to people at work. It was so good. Okay, I showed wrestling videos to people I work with, and they loved it. You know why? Because Matt Hankins wanted to sell some t-shirts. And I said, tag me in your post, people, and I'll share. Because, well, it helps you sell t-shirts. It helps us sell t-shirts. And it drives traffic to their website. So Matt Hankins tagged me in the post. And I shared that thing all weekend. It's a business decision. I don't know about wrestling. I don't know. I've been in the ring one time and I almost hurt myself alone just getting in, and I could hardly get out. I don't know how to do things. I don't know how to cut a promo for shit, but I know how to make things work and how to sell stuff. I've been in retail my entire life. I was born in the back of a store somewhere. Actually pretty close. But if your merchandise isn't readily put where people can see it, they can't buy it.
Yeah.
Make it shareable. You got to put it out on the front shelf because nobody's going to come looking for it in the back.
Yeah, I'm with you, man. That's the big push, man, is get your stuff out there, let everybody know. I mean, because social media is all about exponential growth of your when it shares. I mean, if you've got 2,000 and you share it with somebody who's got 3,000 and they put it out, and then this guy puts it out to somebody, he's got 1,000, then you're going to have some overlap because it's the wrestling world. I understand. But geez, man, I mean, make all your stuff shareable. Like I said, whether it's you cutting promos, it's what Hold My Beer Hansen did it so well that led up to the reaction he got. Put your merch out there because you know what's funny? Somebody might see it who's not even a wrestling fan and just think the shirt's cool.
We got a Patreon from Australia.
Yeah. Just because it's sharing.
Australia. Nick, what does Tapped Out Collectibles sell?
Comic books. And
where would we see some of the merchandise?
It's on Facebook.
Also, it's behind you.
Yeah, well, yeah, there's that too.
On a show that's going to do thousands of watches. Okay? Thousands of views. And that's right behind you. People don't have to ask to see what's in your storeroom. People don't have to ask where the Tapped Out Collectible stuff is because you share it. I share it. Other people share it because it's great stuff.
Yeah, I agree, man. That's it's all social media is all about make it shareable, folks, and that's what that was. We just wanted to make sure we put that out there this week. That one of the things for these indie guys is make sure you're putting your stuff shareable.
Tag me and stuff. I'll share.
Yeah, we don't have a problem with that. But the most important thing you should do, head over to one of our social media, podcast platforms, whatever. Subscribe. Whether you listen to the podcast and you're doing it on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Podbean, iHeartMedia, Google, doesn't matter. Subscribe anywhere and everywhere. Give us a 5-star rating review, especially if you guys like the video, but you don't catch it on Facebook. It's available on YouTube as well. But of course, always that we say you can follow us and watch it on Facebook as well. And if you also like to support the show, another great place is
Pro Wrestling Tees. Another huge holiday sale this week. I can't turn these sales down. I got me a Toot and Tug Boogie shirt coming. I can't wait to get it. High quality shirts, top quality materials, great graphics that never fade, all your favorite wrestlers and podcasters in one place. I get me a 5X shirt from the WWE and my gut hangs out the bottom of it. But it doesn't hang out the bottom of one of their shirts from Pro Wrestling Tees because it doesn't shrink. Quality material. Buy your shirts there. Just buy the shirts that they sell because they're great shirts, comfortable shirts. My kids steal them to sleep in. Good people, great products. Support local indie wrestling. Support all indie wrestling. ProWrestlingTees.com.
Yep. Go to ProWrestlingTees.com and put Tapped Out Wrestling in the search bar and we'll come up, man. And like I said, I mean, guys that are local to you, put their name in there and search. You might be stunned to find out that they've got a shirt in there as well, and go crazy. Buy 5 or 6 of them at one time and get it bought. It'll save you on the shipping in the long run. Trust me. But hey, man, that's everything I've got for today. Did you have anything else that I missed that we're not thinking about?
Well, I'm gonna put over the Rob Rod report, because if you want to go to indie wrestling shows in Georgia, Rob Rod reports on them every week and tells you where to find them, and people watch that stuff, and he posts about them, and people see that stuff. Maybe they don't see your poster because you're in Dingledorf, South Georgia somewhere. But if Rob Rod will talk about it, he'll talk about shows in Tennessee if you just send it to him and tag him.
Yeah.
Also, rest in peace, Ralphus. And Jeff, check your sugar. But that's all I got.
Well, man, what's the old saying, brother? If I've got nothing and you've got nothing, what time is it?
It's time to tap out.